Would Dr. Dre be as rich and successful as he is without Suge Knight? I don't think so. I know you probably saying to yourself, well, what you mean? Yeah, let's get into some of this straight game and tell me what you think.
Yeah. Blackjack. Life is like a game of cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Yeah. Blackjack. To play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy DELRAY, Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, Straight Game TV. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, notification. Also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like I always say, if you want to be one of the first people notified when I drop some of this straight game, please do me a favor and hit that little bell notification right below this video. I'm going to get right into it. One of my subscribers had asked me a question, and the question was, do you think that Dr. Dre will be as successful as he is without Suge Knight? And I had to think about it for a minute. And that's a very interesting question. And the reason why it's an interesting question is because a lot of people would say, well, you know, when Dr. Dre left Death Row, you know, he basically left with nothing. You know what I mean? And all of the drama and everything that was going on over at Death Row at that particular time. But, you know, I would have to honestly say, you know, and I can give you a couple of instances where you would be able to understand and say, yeah, you know, that's true. You know, I'll go into the Tupac situation first. You know, Tupac, when he was in jail, right? You take that situation, you say, well, at that particular time, Tupac was basically too dirty to touch, you know, from a corporate standpoint, right? Right. So when you think about that, you say, okay, well, you bring Suge Knight into the situation. Suge Knight, you know, had success with the Chronic. He had success with Doggy Style, and you know, Dr. Dre was the guy who basically the producer, you know, along with Daz and all of the other guys, but mainly the producer behind everything. Dre was basically the cash cow that made the machine move, right? Coming from NWA and the whole 9 yards. So when I was asked that question, I was like, you know, the Beats headphones, you know, all of the other you know, ventures and things that Dr. Dre has been successful at. I would have to say Dr. Dre, you know, not that Dre wouldn't have been as successful, because Dre was already a success with the NWA situation. But he wasn't being treated fairly, right? You know, according to him, you know, and interviews that he's spoken about the situation. He wasn't getting the right royalties and so on and so forth. And so Suge Knight, the bodyguard, and a Suge Knight. Now, most people would say, you know, well, Dre was going to do X, Y, and Z anyway. I'm not talking about what he was going to do or speculative or guessing or, you know, trying to Monday morning quarterback the situation. I'm talking about what actually happened. Dr. Dre, under the circumstances in which he's dealing with right now, Dr. Dre does not do the Chronic. Dr. Dre does not do Doggy Style. Dr. Dre does not do California Love, All Eyes on Me. None of that if it wasn't for Suge Knight. Now, Dre would have been who he was. Like I said, NWA, he was already doing his thing, you know. And it was a phenomenal. Like I said, everybody know when NWA dropped, you know, the noise that they made, you know, they changed the hip-hop as we knew it. You know what I mean? And you can't take nothing away from Dre. But what I'm talking about is we all know partially about the story, you know, talked about as far as Suge Knight getting Dr. Dre released from Ruthless, however he did it, right? I'm not sure how that, you know, like I said, a lot of people talk about that. Even Dre was like, you know, however he did it, they did it. But later on, Eazy-E filed a lawsuit. But Dre was eventually let go based on the fact that Suge Knight and whatever tactic he used to get Dre out of the contract, he used it and it happened. Therefore, now that puts Dr. Dre in a position to be a free agent, or better yet, now be part owner in Death Row, as well as the lead producer who produced all of those hits over at Death Row, right? So through Dre's own talent, is what made, him who he is. Let's be clear about that, without a doubt. And his ear for music and all of those things. But like I said, if it was not for Suge making that move, we don't have Beats headphones as we know it today. We don't have, we don't have Death Row Records as it's known, for all of the things that they created, all the records and the hits and that. We don't have that. Because Dre was the guy who was behind those boards, who was behind those beats, along with other, other people helping out, Daz and so on and so forth, and a group of writers, that collaboration, Rage, Nate Dogg, Corrupt, RBX, all of those people, right? But like I said, at the end of the day, if Suge does not make that move, we do not have all of what we have, period. And so to the question, yeah, I would agree with that, because all of those things added to Dr. Dre's success. The thing that Suge Knight didn't do, the question I asked was, well, how can you take Dr. Dre from a situation and where he's supposed to not be being treated fairly, right, to bring him into a situation where you do the exact same thing? And Suge Knight doing that to Dr. Dre when Dr. Dre left Death Row, the rumor was that Dr. Dre left with nothing. He did leave Death Row with nothing coming from Suge Knight, but Suge Knight really didn't have that power to really cut a check to Dr. Dre at that particular time. You know what I mean? Jimmy Iovine took care of Dr. Dre, to make sure he was happy in Aftermath and Eminem and 50 Cent and all of the success that he had, thereafter. So from the Death Row aspect of it, right? Because, in saying Dr. Dre left with nothing, now I'm starting from zero over here, new company, all of this, gotta, start it again, try to find that hit record and, and still doing what he did. But yeah, without Suge, none of those things happened. I don't think the relationship with Jimmy Iovine, whether Jimmy Iovine knew Dr. Dre prior to the Death Row situation being started, I don't really know. But what I do know is, after the situation, I think Jimmy Iovine even seen in Dr. Dre a winner, a guy who knew what he was doing, who had a golden ear, who had the golden touch, and, and knew how to create superstars, as he's done every time he's, basically, went into the studio and he's believed in somebody, the game also, And so, yeah, so the question was interesting, but like I said, I would have to say, yeah, if it wasn't for Suge Knight, then, Dre wouldn't have had as much success to Beats headphones, because that relationship with Jimmy Iovine is non-existent as we know it today. Not to say that Dre wouldn't have met Jimmy Iovine down the line and they may have done something. I don't think it would have been this thing here, from all of the, the turmoil, the trouble, comes the sunshine. And comes all of the success and the things that they've done together. Like I said, the Beats music program that they were gonna do in regards to like Apple iTunes that was bought up when they bought the Beats headphones. That was a all-in-one deal. And like I said, Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine actually having the new arts institute situation built over at USC, you know what I mean, and them doing that together. So like I said, yeah. So Suge Knight and doing what he did, like I said, the thing that he didn't do was he didn't play fair, you know what I mean, and he was a bully, you know what I mean, and I know, Suge probably sit back and think to himself like, you know, because he could have been a part of that success too, because he was a part of that success, you know. But like I said, sometimes if you give somebody too much money, you know, it goes to their head and they start believing that, you know, they are more powerful than the situation. And nobody is more powerful than the situation. Because like Dr. Dre showed us, that you can always find a new situation. And Aftermath, Eminem, 50 Cent, The Game, The Chronic 2001, and all of the other successful projects that Dr. Dre, the Straight Outta Compton, all of those other successful projects that Dr. Dre has been involved in. And so, yeah, you know, and so when you think back on it, it's kind of unfortunate, you know, like, you know, Tupac lost his life and all of those things, you know. And like I said, this Suge thing with Tupac, we know for a fact that Suge did not pay Tupac's bail. You know, that's a fact. You know, I've showed you guys the paperwork. But Suge Knight was the catalyst that made that move, right? So once again, if not for Suge Knight, good, bad, or indifferent, you don't have All Eyes on Me. You don't have the Machiavelli album and all of the other songs that Tupac recorded while he was under death row. Like I said, good, bad, or indifferent, you know, after Pac died, his mom's was made whole, you know, in regards to what she needed to do and you know, rectifying his situation or getting his Tupac's affairs in order. And so, yeah, but like I said, more importantly, yeah, you wouldn't, yeah, Suge, he did a lot. He did a lot for the game. You know, like I said, unfortunately, he couldn't see past the drama, you know, and he couldn't just like lay low and be that guy that laid low, like a Russell Simmons, you know, over at Def Jam, or back in the day like a Jay Prince. When Jay Prince started rap, a lot of people didn't know what Jay Prince looked like. You know what I mean? You know, and like I say, so there is some value in having that mystique, you know, but Suge Knight wanted to play the front, you know, like I said, once again. So yeah, you know, the question is, I don't think that Dr. Dre would have been as successful if it wasn't for Suge Knight, because like I said, Suge Knight got him out that situation in which Dr. Dre thought he was being wrong and underpaid with Ruthless Records, and then to go over to Death Row to create that. And even though that didn't go right, he went on to create Aftermath, and that did go right. The Beats headphones, all of that. You know, just recently selling some of his catalog for $200 million. Yeah. Yeah, so I think that, yeah, Suge did play a role in that. Yeah, your boy DELRAY, chime in and tell me what y'all think. Straight game.